Hello dear friends, and welcome to this brand new video in which we are going to talk about some psychology, and more specifically we are going to talk about some typical fears that the different signs may have. And before we get started, just let me remind you that each person is a combination of the 12 signs. Some of them are stronger, more accentuated, but to a certain extent, we all have the 12 of them. So don't think that you should only resonate with your sun sign. You might have your sun in a particular sign, but let's say you may have a stellium in the opposite sign. So be more open and just explore and see if this will resonate with you. And also, I want to say that there are some kind of specific characteristics which are related to the different elements. And actually, I would like to start by exploring the different elements. And there are some mutual fears that different signs may share, but there are also more specific and more concrete fears that are mostly related to each of the 12 signs. So let me also remind you that if you want to understand more about psychology and specifically about psychological astrology, I have a free webinar. You can check the links below and you can watch it immediately. So let's begin with the fire element. The fire element includes Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. Overall, those are optimistic signs. They are not really predisposed to fears, or at least it's not so typical for them to be fearful. Of course, everyone gets scared sometimes, but their major fears are usually related to someone or something taking away their freedom. Because the fire signs, they are all about taking action. They really value their independence, their individuality, their ability to take risks, do whatever they want. So overall, if something threatens those abilities or those opportunities, they might get afraid of losing those things. So even though it's not typical for them to be fearful, of course, we all get afraid at a certain point. So for them, it's mostly related about using their individuality, their identity, someone taking control of their life or something. And overall, the idea that they may have to follow the rules of someone else, that they are not at the top, or, losing overall is a fear that they may have. Now, more specifically about Aries. This is one of the most independent signs. So one of their fears might be that they may lose this independence. They might be afraid also of losing. For example, we know that they are very competitive, so losing or being second or being at the bottom is something they could be afraid of, something they want to avoid. They always try to be at the top, to be first. So losing in whatever they find important in life, in work, at business, could be something they're afraid of, and also someone telling them what to do. On the other side, for Leo, they really value the opportunity to be noticed. So if someone doesn't notice them, they may see this as something threatening, or they may just have the fear that they may not be important, or that they are not recognized, or no one appreciates them. So overall, being like everybody else could be a fear they have, and just being unrespected or unappreciated or feeling unimportant. This could be a fear they might have. For Sagittarius, a very typical fear could be losing what they have, losing prestige, losing their status, losing their wealth, or what they have in life. They might be afraid also of looking unintelligent or sometimes looking stupid, and it doesn't mean they look this way, but this is something they really want to avoid. It's important for them to show, you know, how they deserve to be respected, how important they are, and just losing their success or prosperity may also be something really uncomfortable for Sagittarius. But overall, for the 3 fire signs, the most typical fears are based on something or someone taking away their individuality, their ability to take action, to be noticed, and to do something important. That's kind of a mutual theme for the fire signs. For the earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, we have some really different fears. They're mostly practical, meaning like very concrete. They can name it, they know it, it's very specific. And very often it's related to their material status and also to their career or the stability they have in life. This is like mutual for the 3 earth signs. For Taurus, there is one more, which is kind of more concrete fear for them, the fear of change, especially unexpected change. Taurus don't like this. They like things to be well known, stable, and they like safety. So this could be a very typical fear for them, the fear of losing this stability, of something happening suddenly out of the blue, which completely changes their life. We know that sometimes Taurus could be a little rigid. They prefer, you know, things to be comfortable, well known. So if something threatens their comfort, their safety, their material stability, they might get really uncomfortable. Another thing which is typical for Taurus is also the fear of poverty. The fear of losing one's financial stability or depending on other people or something like that. Generally, fear of poverty is very typical for Taurus. Then we have Virgo. So for Virgo, one of the most typical fears is related to health. They could be afraid that something is not okay with their body, or they're not healthy enough, or they don't have enough energy, or something may not work well in the future. So all kinds of health related fears might be very, very present for Virgo. They may also be afraid of making mistakes. We know that Virgo can be perfectionist, so the idea of making a mistake, forgetting about something, or doing something wrong, which allows other people to criticize you, could be a huge fear and blockage for them. And something else which is also quite typical is the fear of chaos. And this is probably something that they also share with Capricorn. For Capricorn, this may also be a theme. So probably for the 2 signs, Virgo and Capricorn, this is one of the most typical fears, the fear of chaos, the fear of just losing structure, having no order, not knowing what to do, just kind of feeling lost. This could be something which is very uncomfortable for the 2 signs as well. And for Capricorn, some of the typical fears are also related to losing control. Someone telling them what to do, or overall feeling like they just don't have control in life. Like there are many things that don't depend on them. This could be very uncomfortable. Also the fear of losing one's reputation, losing one's achievements, you know, the things that they have worked for, or feeling like other people don't respect them, losing the respect of others. Those are also really uncomfortable things. And overall things that are related to their integrity. Capricorn really value integrity, they value structure, order, they value the practical things. And if something is threatening this, like as we said, for example, chaos, feeling uncertain, feeling like nothing depends on you, those are fears that make them really, really uncomfortable. And of course, all kinds of fears related to the feeling that they are not enough, that they aren't achieving enough, or things are just too difficult. This is another typical theme for Capricorn. Okay, next we have the air signs. So for air signs, also fears are not so typical. They have their own specific fears, but overall they are not really fearful on average, of course. And here the main fears, or the common fears that they share, the three air signs, Gemini, Aquarius and Libra, the most common fears for those three signs are related to boredom, losing, interest in life, or feeling like things are too routine. They might be afraid of this. They might be afraid of the boundaries, the strictness, something taking away their choice or their ability to connect with other people or to communicate. And also all kinds of fears that are related to friendship, or for Libra, for example, the personal relationships, and anything that's related to their intellectual work. For example, not performing well or not achieving good results in one's work, or feeling stupid. This may also be a fear, or looking stupid for other people. This may also be something really uncomfortable for the air signs. So more specifically about Gemini. So they're probably one of the main signs that could be afraid of boredom. I would say Gemini and Aquarius the most. If things are too routine, unmotivating, not interesting, that's what they could be afraid of. They like variety, they like excitement, they like interesting stuff, they like to be multitaskers. So, for example, they could be afraid that they have to focus on only one thing and they don't have a choice, or they don't have options, or they don't have variety. Sometimes they might be afraid if they don't have enough knowledge, enough information. They may feel like incompetent if they don't have this information. So it's also really uncomfortable. And Gemini may also be afraid of losing their friends, or losing the connection or the communication with other people. Also something quite typical. Then for Libra, the fears are mostly related to how other people see me, especially the closest people around me. They might be afraid of losing balance. This is very typical. They might be afraid of confrontations. They don't like this. And also they might be afraid of losing their kind of like positive projection or positive reputation they have in front of other people. So for Libra, it's very important to look nice, to be important for others, and just other people to like them. So they might be afraid of losing all of that, losing their reputation, or losing the interest of other people, and of course anything about relationships. Sometimes Libra may also be afraid of being alone, being single. And finally, the last air sign, of course, it's Aquarius. Aquarius may also be afraid of boredom, and something quite typical for them. They might be afraid of being like everybody else, being just a normal, regular, or boring person. It's something they just don't like. Also, routine stuff might be something they try to avoid. They are afraid of that. They prefer variety. They need excitement. They need interesting experiences. So they could be afraid of conservatism, or too much structure, or too much order, or something taking away their freedom, and also losing their ability to connect. And with Aquarius, things might be more specific, because some of them are very socially open to connect with others, and just being part of a circle of like-minded souls is very important. But there is another group of Aquarius people who are loners. So here things may vary, but overall this is a team. So either it's something very important for them to socialize with others, or they tend to feel detached and prefer to be kind of hermits, living on their own mostly. But overall, they don't like being like everybody else. They are afraid of being boring people and just losing their freedom. And finally, we get to the water signs: Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And the truth is that those signs are the most predisposed to fears. All of the water signs might be more fearful, and it's kind of typical for them also to have more irrational fears, especially Pisces, but even the other two water signs, Scorpio and Cancer, may also have more irrational fears. They might be afraid of things that are not like really threatening for them, but somehow they have a feeling, or they think, okay, I have this fear, something might go wrong, where is this coming from? Those are like intuitive, and it's not necessarily something realistic. Actually, in most cases they are absolutely different from reality, but they bring lots of discomfort. So usually the water signs really need to work on those things. For Cancer specifically, they are mostly afraid for their loved ones, their family, their kids, their parents, and everyone who they really love. They might be afraid for their health, for their, happiness, for all kinds of fears, rational and irrational as well. So Cancer are really investing lots of energy to worry about their loved ones. That's like the most typical fear. Also, something else could be related to safety and stability. Anything related to home, they might be afraid of that. They might be afraid of losing stability also, or uncertainty, or just not feeling safe. Those are really typical fears for Cancer. Next we have Scorpio, and Scorpio, even though it's one of my favorite signs, it's also one of the most complicated, and they may have lots of fears. They don't like to demonstrate that, like with most things. They don't like to demonstrate, so they may keep things very deep. They may not be open to sharing those fears, but deep inside they may worry a lot. They may have fear of someone else losing someone else, or someone lying to them, or betrayal. This is usually a major fear they have, to be betrayed by their loved ones, by the people they trust. And also sometimes financial fears, financial worries, the fear of being manipulated, the fear of losing control or losing one's power, or just the fear of feeling disempowered by other people or something else happening in life. Scorpio may have lots of fears, and they don't like to demonstrate that, as we said. So on the outside they may look quite tough and like put together, but usually on a deeper level they may have lots of fears. And finally we have Pisces. So Pisces are really predisposed to irrational fears. They may have like panic attacks, they might be extremely sensitive, they might be afraid of something invisible that they don't necessarily see, but they might feel. They might be afraid also of being hurt. This is kind of typical for the three water signs, but especially for Pisces. So all kinds of irrational fears, and sometimes even the fear of losing your mind, the fear of just going crazy, or the fear of not knowing what to do, the fear of losing yourself. So for the water signs, things are really not simple, and they need to work a lot to achieve their emotional balance. So to summarize everything that we talked about, the most predisposed signs to fears are, first of all, the water signs. Then the earth signs. So overall, those are the feminine signs, water and earth. They tend to be more fearful than the other two elements. Air and fire are usually more stable and usually not so fearful. They have their own worries, of course, but usually it's not so typical for them. And as we said, for water element, mostly irrational fears, fears for their loved ones. For the earth signs, mostly practical fears, also fears related to material stuff, losing their stability. For the air element, those are mostly fears related to communication or their independence or variety in life they want to have. And of course, for the fire signs, we said it's mostly about losing freedom, someone telling them what to do, losing their ability to take action, and all of those things related to independence and doing things in their own way. So that's just a basic overview of the most typical fears. As I said, we are not just our sun signs, so you might resonate with some of the other signs, and we may have different fears, but one of the most important things is to work on them. So never accept this as, you know, something which will always be there. We have tools, we have ways to work with those fears, but first of all, we have to recognize them, we have to see them and admit them. So I hope it was interesting for you. Don't forget, if you want to learn astrology on a deeper level, sign up for the waitlist for MarStars Astrology Academy. Links are below. You can also use the free birth chart calculator on my website, links again below. And of course, the free class, the free webinar on how to create a psychological profile with astrology. It was a pleasure for me to be here with you. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you soon. Ciao.